The Aegis initiative was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It did not fire a round or launch a missile. It thought. It absorbed chaos and returned probability. Anna stood at the center of its architecture, not as a commander barking orders, but as a conductor guiding an orchestra of data. Atmospheric sensors fed live wind vectors from every ridgeline. Orbital platforms contributed terrain deformation maps accurate down to centimeters. Seismic pickups registered distant artillery discharges and microshifts in rock strata. To most, it was overwhelming noise. To Anna, it was clarity. Patterns emerged where others saw clutter. The battlefield, once a place of uncertainty, resolved into a solvable equation. That philosophy guided everything she did, including the shot she was about to take. Outside, on the range, the silence had thickened. Even Captain Thorne had stopped smirking. His arms were crossed now, posture rigid, eyes narrowed. He had seen enough shooters to know when bravado gave way to something else. Sharma was not performing. She was calculating. Her finger rested against the trigger shoe, not applying pressure, merely making contact, as if confirming the rifle's presence in the same way one might confirm their own pulse. 2,000 meters. The bullet would be in flight for several seconds, long enough for the wind to change its mind twice. Long enough for the earth itself to rotate beneath it. She compensated not just for what the environment was doing, but for what it would do. That was the difference. She broke the shot. The rifle recoiled with a muted shove, more a firm suggestion than a kick. The suppressor swallowed the report, leaving only the dry snap of displaced air. Anna stayed in the scope, watching the vapor trail arc into the distance, a thin white thread stitching the mountain air. Time stretched. The Marines behind her leaned forward despite themselves. Then, far beyond the visible target line, from a place none of them had even bothered to look, came a faint, delayed metallic chime. Clean. Unmistakable. Impact. No one spoke. Thorne's jaw tightened. He replayed the geometry in his mind and failed to make it work. His world was built on aggression, speed, and direct action. This was something else entirely. This was precision elevated to strategy. Anna finally lifted her head, exhaled, and cycled the bolt with smooth indifference. The equation was complete. Solution verified. That moment would have remained a curiosity, a story traded reluctantly over bad coffee, if the mountains had allowed it. They did not. 48 hours later, the first alert came through the Aegis system, not as a warning but as a whisper. An anomaly. A deviation in seismic data that did not match natural patterns. Anna isolated it, cross-referenced satellite shadows, thermal bleed, and signal interference. The conclusion was immediate and chilling. A coordinated enemy artillery position was being established deep within the folds of the range, beyond conventional counter-battery reach. Fob Kestrel was not being observed. It was being measured. When she briefed the finding, the room was tense. Thorne was there, along with battalion staff and intelligence officers. This time, no one joked. Anna did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. She laid out firing solutions that curved around mountains, exploited thermal gradients, and used the planet's rotation as an ally. The numbers were brutal and elegant. 1 battery. 3 rounds. Total neutralization. The room understood the implication. This was not theory. This was executable. Captain Thorne met her eyes across the table. There was no apology in his expression, but there was acknowledgement. On the mountain, equations had beaten muscle. and soon, they would save lives. A few of them snickered. The sound carried thinly in the cold air, brittle and sharp. Thorn turned back to her, his smile polite in the way a blade can be polite before it cuts. "We'll keep it tight," he said. Professional courtesy. It was not a request. It was a test. A way to see if she would bend, if the rules were flexible when applied to her. Sharma finally looked up. Her expression was neutral, almost serene, but her eyes were alert, taking in the spacing of their rifles, the angle of their bipods, the way one Marine was already chambering around. "No," she said simply. One word. No rank pulled. No lecture. Just a fact. The smile vanished. For a moment, Thorn considered pressing it. He was used to rooms yielding when he filled them. But the range safety officer, a staff sergeant with no appetite for politics, cleared his throat and glanced at the posted reservation board. The silence stretched. Thorn gave a short nod, the kind that promised the conversation wasn't over. "Your range," he said. "For now." That was when he issued the challenge. Not formally. Not on the record. Just loud enough for everyone to hear. "You ever shoot past a click with that thing?" Major heads turned. Attention snapped into focus. Sharma set her tablet down carefully. She understood the subtext immediately. This was not about curiosity. This was about hierarchy. About drawing a line between those who fought wars and those who analyzed them. "Yes," she replied. Thorn's eyebrow lifted. "Here similar altitude," she said. "More variable wind." Another pause. The Marines were fully engaged now. Thorn gestured downrange with his chin. "We've got steel at 1,000. Past that, it's mountain and imagination." "That will suffice," Sharma said. She selected the firing solution not from instinct, but from synthesis. Iggy's fed her live wind shear from 3 altitudes, thermal drift from sun exposure on the rock face, and a minute pressure change rolling in from the western saddle. She adjusted the rifle with movements so economical they barely registered as motion. Sergeant Cole watched closely now. This was not range theatrics. This was someone who respected the weapon enough not to waste movement. Thorn folded his arms. "Just so we're clear," he said, voice raised slightly, "this isn't a test of courage. It's physics." Sharma nodded once. "All combat is," she replied. The shot broke clean. The rifle recoiled. The suppressor hushed the report into something almost intimate. The Marines waited, eyes straining downrange. 1 second. 2. 3. Then faint, distant, but undeniable, the ring of steel echoed back from somewhere far beyond where any of them had expected to hear it. A ripple went through the platoon. One Marine swore softly under his breath. Cole's eyes widened a fraction before he masked it. Thorn didn't move. He stared downrange, jaw tight, recalculating a world that had just shifted beneath his feet. Sharma cleared the rifle and stood. "Your muzzle blast," she said calmly, "would have corrupted my data." She gathered her tablet and stepped away from the firing line, leaving the echo of the impact hanging in the cold air. She had not won them over. Not yet. But the wall had cracked. And in warfare, cracks were everything. Far above them, unseen, Iggy's continued to listen to the wind, to the ground, to the distant mechanical heartbeat of vehicles that did not belong on that mountain. The equation was growing larger. And soon, it would demand more than proof on a firing range. 7 mph, bearing 342 degrees. She paused, letting the system reconcile the inputs, watching as Iggy's predictive model subtly reshaped the ballistic arc. The projected trajectory appeared as a pale curve, climbing far higher than instinct would ever allow, cresting against the thin sky before bending back toward the unseen steel. It looked wrong. To a marksman trained on intuition, it bordered on absurd. That was the point. Sharma saved the solution and finally moved to the rifle. She settled prone behind it with a smoothness born of repetition, not urgency. The bipod bit into the frozen gravel. She drew the stock into the pocket of her shoulder and adjusted the cheek riser by feel alone. Around her, the range had gone utterly silent. Even the Marines had stopped shifting their weight. Sergeant Cole leaned forward slightly, his skepticism now tempered by something else: recognition. This was the posture of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Thorne stood rigid, arms crossed, jaw clenched. He said nothing now. His earlier confidence had nowhere to go but inward, where doubt had begun to fester. Sharma took a breath and let it out slowly. The reticle hovered not on the ridge, but well above it, floating in empty sky. To anyone watching through another optic, it would have looked like a mistake. She adjusted the elevation far more than any of them would have dared, then fine-tuned the windage with 2 deliberate clicks. The numbers on her tablet confirmed the solution. Probability of hit, 73%. In this environment, at this distance, it was an extraordinary figure. She placed her finger on the trigger. The shot broke cleanly. The suppressed crack snapped through the thin air, followed by the distant, delayed whisper of the bullet tearing its way downrange. Sharma stayed in the scope, tracking the vapor trail as it climbed, higher and higher, until it seemed to vanish into nothing. A second passed. Then another. The Marines exchanged glances, some already preparing the smirk they would wear when nothing happened. Then, from somewhere beyond the ridge, from a place none of them could see and none of them had truly believed could be reached, came the sound. A faint, hollow clang. Metal on metal. It echoed once, twice, then was swallowed by the mountains. For a heartbeat, no one moved. No one spoke. The sound hung in the air, fragile and undeniable. Sergeant Cole straightened slowly, his eyes fixed on the ridge as if expecting it to explain itself. One of the Marines let out a low breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Thorne's arms dropped to his sides. Sharma exhaled and gently cycled.